now available in paperback and e-readers. Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. Actor Vince Vaughn talked about why they don't make R-rated comedies in Hollywood anymore. Now, the R-rated comedy was a staple of Hollywood from the late 1960s all the way up until about 2015 or so. And the R-rated comedy was a staple because Hollywood could always bank on these kinds of comedies doing well at the box office after they were greenlit for production. And these R-rated comedies basically were money in the bank for the studios. However, in recent years, the studios have decided not to make these R-rated comedies, and the reasons for not making these comedies are ones that I found to be quite troubling. Now, Vince Vaughn states that Hollywood overthinks making movies these days, and because they overthink making movies, it's hard to get an R-rated comedy greenlit at one of these studios, and I have to agree with him on that point. It would be very hard to get an R-rated romantic comedy or an R-rated comedy made these days, like the ones that made him a star, such as Old School and Wedding Crashers, or even get a film like Cameron Diaz's Bad Teacher made at this point. And those were the kinds of movies that basically were the backbone of Hollywood. And those are the reasons why Hollywood is struggling right now, because a lot of the money that Hollywood made over the course of the late 60s all the way to about 2015 or so was made with films like these R-rated comedies that basically were made with smaller budgets but went on to make big box office. I mean, I remember when they made films like Wedding Crashers. I think it came out the same time Iron Man came out. Yeah, I think it did come out in 2008 or so, and I remember that being one of the biggest movies of the year. It was 2005 actually, but still, it was one of the biggest films of the year and a blockbuster overall. And I remember many of these R-rated comedies doing extremely well at the box office, and it's just quite puzzling to me that Hollywood just can't greenlight these kinds of films. However, when I look at the current state of America as related to the so-called culture wars, I can understand why these films aren't being greenlit. And Vince Vaughn, in his interview on YouTube's The Hot One, says that they overthink it. And I have to say, yeah, they do overthink it, because when it comes to Hollywood studio executives these days, a lot of Hollywood studio executives, they basically overthink things because they want everything to be guaranteed for success. And because they want everything to be guaranteed for success, they are averse to taking risks. And when it comes to an R-rated comedy, there's a lot of risk. And there's a lot of risk because you're going out here and making commentary in between the lines of your comedy. And some people out here, they basically may not get that comedy. And once they don't get that comedy, what many of these studio executives fear is that these people will run over to social media to talk about how they are offended by that comedy. And because they are offended, they fear what will happen is that these people will organize a so-called boycott against that film and basically destroy that film's ability to make box office at the theater. That is one of the things many of these studio executives fear as related to films, because films these days basically have huge budgets because the studios are in a case of tunnel vision as related to these superhero movies, these animated movies, and these big budget movies, that they fear that these films may not do well, and so they don't want to go out and greenlight a $40 million romantic comedy or a $40 million R-rated comedy, because they fear that if they make that comedy, many of these very fragile snowflake types will take to social media and torpedo that film's press and that buzz and keep that film from being able to gain any momentum at the box office or build any sort of word of mouth. That is what people fear in Hollywood, And because they fear risk, what they want to do is basically get something that they believe will be easily bankable for them, such as a film like a adaptation of a best-selling book or an adaptation of an older intellectual property, and they want to keep playing it safe, but you really can't play it safe when it comes to comedy. When it comes to comedy, basically, you are going to be taking shots at things in life. You're going to be taking shots at the way people live, and some people may not be able to take that kind of criticism between the lines of the jokes in that comedy, and that's what makes many studio executives afraid to go out here and make an R-rated comedy, because they fear that they may not be able to make that money at the box office. But as I see it, we desperately do need some R-rated comedies, because there are some situations that do need to be talked about and made fun of as related to life. And we really do need to make fun of things, because it's a shame that we can't really laugh at life anymore. And that's something that R-rated comedies allowed people to do, was be able to laugh at life and life situations and see people and be able to laugh at those situations that they have in life. And it's a shame that we can't make those movies in Hollywood anymore, because many of the blue-haired social justice types and many of the snowflakes on social media and many of the Hollywood executives are afraid of offending people or offending groups. But that's what comedy is all about. It's all about basically taking shots at things, and taking shots at things in a way that allows us to laugh at a situation in life that basically we all have experienced, because that's what the core of comedy is all about. The core of comedy is being able to laugh at life situations and laugh at things in life that we all struggle with. And then as we're laughing, we learn that, life is not that serious. That's what comedy enables people to do. And as a guy who writes comedy, I oftentimes, again, look to make commentary in between the lines of my jokes. I mean, I have written comedies like All About Nikki, where it was about a spoiled rich girl in Beverly Hills, and in between the lines of that comedy, where I have lines like the girl asking Rumsfeld, what would I use this for? And the butler saying, why we use this to wax the rolls. I mean, that kind of joke is in between the lines of a comedy about a family looking to come together after a divorce. And in my book, Spinsterella, which is about a black goth, it's a whole comedy about being an introvert and facing your fears as you try to come together in a romance. I mean, really good comedy basically is about us laughing about life, and it's a shame that we can't really laugh about life anymore. It's a shame that we really can't go out here and make those kinds of comedies. Yes, these comedies may be raunchy. Yes, they may feature nudity. Yes, they may feature sexual situations, but they show us a snapshot of life, and that's something that's really missing from movies these days. I mean, we live in a world where the only movies we get to see these days, again, are these superhero movies. We get to see these animated movies and these big budget epics, or sci-fi or fantasy. But what we really are missing are those films about people, and that's where the R-rated comedies like Wedding Crashers and Old School and Bad Teacher and older movies like Boomerang and many others come in. They enable us to basically see that snapshot of life in time and be able to laugh at life at that time and laugh about people at that time. I mean, that's what's really missing from film these days, is the ability to just see people living and enjoying life. And I really am saddened, again, that the studios don't make the R-rated comedies anymore that I grew up with. I mean, there were lots of R-rated comedies that resonated with me in the 80s, such as The Last American Virgin, many of the John Hughes films, and many of the many other films that were out in the teen movie era. And I can remember watching other R-rated comedies, and all those comedies basically, again, were just a lot of fun to watch. They were a great escape because we could just basically laugh at life and a life situation. I mean, that's basically what made these movies fun. And that's what's really missing from Hollywood's whole experience these days, because many of the studio executives, I believe, basically are taking movie making too serious. They're mostly bean counters these days, focused on making money, but not going out here and telling great stories. And as a result, what we're getting is a very dull movie experience, because I myself, even though I've been a comic book fan since I was 4 years old, I'm basically bored with superhero movies, and I want to see some movies with some people, and I wouldn't mind seeing some movies with some people with some rated R nudity and other stuff just like I like it. I mean, that's the kind of stories that I can write these days. I mean, some of my books like Spinsterella, The Legendary Mad Matilda, and Spellbound, they were all written to be somewhat R-rated as related to the comedy that's in them. Same thing for one of my books called A Recipe for Success, which is a really an R-rated, raunchy romantic comedy. I mean, I go out here and I write comedy all the time, and it's sad that you just can't enjoy an R-rated comedy these days because people are so fragile and in their feelings, and many studio executives are afraid of upsetting those people. But that's what good comedy does. Good comedy basically upsets people because it makes them think about the world that they're in. It makes them think about the life that they're living, and makes us all, as we think about those things and have a laugh with them, take a look at ourselves. I mean, that's what really great comedy allows us to do. It allows us to, again, think about our world, think about life, and think about how we're living as people. I mean, that's what really great comedy does. I mean, a couple of months ago, I was watching the movie Bad Teacher, and everything that my family member who was a teacher was talking about was in that movie. And it was a lot of those things were relatable to what I've seen with a lot of teachers and the apathy that they have. And when it came to Wedding Crashers, you could relate to Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson because they were doing what guys love to do. I mean, guys want to get with hot girls, and when they are at the wedding, they basically are caught up in looking to find some dude and hook up with him because they see their friend getting married. So that was a relatable story and relatable to people. And that's one of the things that made those kinds of movies great, these R-rated comedies. It makes it great because you could see real people in real situations, like back in the 80s with The Last American Virgin. What made that movie a great comedy and a great tragedy was the whole tragedy of Gary basically being this simp in his simp phase, and him basically making all the mistakes that led to him losing Karen. I mean, that's what makes these movies truly great films that resonate with people. And again, it's a shame that Hollywood doesn't make R-rated comedies anymore. It's a shame that they don't make these films because they fear failing. But these are the films that were a success because they allowed people who were out here looking to see people like them be able to experience life with them. I mean, it's a story that basically we see ourselves and we can laugh at ourselves. And that's one of the things I miss about America as related to culture over the last 5 years, as we've been in this era of social justice and extreme political correctness in this culture war. Is it's hard to find those moments where we can go out here and laugh about life and laugh about ourselves and laugh with people as related to life situations. I mean, that's the sad thing about today's Hollywood, is you can't really watch a film and just have a good laugh anymore. I mean, I miss comedy, and again, I really miss comedy as a guy who writes comedy, and I just really miss seeing, again, the ability to go out here and just make jokes and have some fun and be able to go to a movie where you can just have a good laugh. And that's what R-rated comedies allowed us to do. But Hollywood studio executives, again, they take the business too seriously. And because they take the business too seriously, they keep us from being able to enjoy a genre of film that's just a whole lot of fun. Now, if you want to check out my comedies that I have written on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find those comedies such as A Recipe for Success, Spinsterella, Spellbound, The Legendary Mad Matilda, and my other book all about Nikki the Fabulous first season. You can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about the entertainment industry, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today. Now available in paperback and e-readers from the author of Spinsterella, A Strange and Unusual Romance, and Spellbound, The Darker Shade of Black comes the legendary Mad Matilda. And get the conclusion to the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.